Many Americans are entering the new year with a mixture of anticipation and caution as the landscape of Social Security begins to shift once again. Each wave of change feels deeply personal because it reaches directly into the daily routines of people who depend on these benefits for stability, medicine, rent, groceries, transportation, and the small comforts that bring dignity to everyday living. As 2026 approaches, the country stands on the edge of three significant adjustments that will influence the way benefits arrive, the size of monthly checks, and the expectations people hold about the long-term structure of the program. The journey into these changes is not marked by confusion or alarm, but by preparation, awareness, and a deeper understanding of how the system adapts to an evolving economic landscape. Across living rooms and kitchen tables, people have been discussing the new cost of living adjustment that will be applied starting in the first month of 2026. The increase, measured at roughly 2.8%, may not sound dramatic at first glance, but for millions of households, even a relatively small inflation adjustment becomes an essential part of their monthly budget. It eases the pressure of rising grocery costs, medication copays, utility bills, transportation fares, and all the little expenses that accumulate quietly but persistently. The adjustment reflects the changes seen in consumer prices over the previous year, a mirror held up to the way everyday life feels on the ground. And while it cannot erase inflation entirely, it helps beneficiaries keep pace with a shifting economy. The second major change is tied to the evolving payment calendar that continues to follow a familiar rhythm, but will feel slightly different for some recipients. The staggered schedule based on birth dates remains the foundation, with early month, mid-month, and late-month distributions shaping how people organize their budgets. For those relying on supplemental security income, the adjustment of January payments arriving early, on the last weekday of the previous December, will once again influence how some households experience the first weeks of the year. Though it does not create extra income, the timing shift often causes temporary confusion, and many beneficiaries have learned to mark their calendars carefully to avoid misinterpreting early deposits as bonus funds. Entering 2026, this familiar pattern returns, calling for awareness and careful planning, especially for households that manage their finances with precision. The third major change developing on the horizon is structural rather than calendar-based. Social Security has reached a moment where long-term sustainability discussions are no longer theoretical. Lawmakers, researchers, advocates, and even retirees themselves are increasingly vocal about proposed adjustments that could strengthen the system for future generations. While no single proposal has become law, conversations around payroll tax thresholds, benefit formulas, and trust fund timelines are surfacing in the public square more frequently. Many Americans sense that 2026 may be the year when these discussions sharpen into clearer policy direction. Although the immediate monthly payment will not suddenly shift because of these debates, the national dialogue surrounding the future of Social Security represents a major change in itself, a growing recognition that the program's path forward requires thoughtful attention. Throughout these discussions, the emotional side of Social Security often emerges quietly. Behind every check is a story: a retired worker who spent decades on their feet, a disabled adult navigating unpredictable medical costs, a widow who depends on survivor benefits to maintain a sense of stability, or a veteran who built their life around service and now depends on regular financial support. When news of changes arrives, it is never just about numbers or administrative adjustments. It is about people wondering whether their rent will still be manageable, whether their medication will remain within reach, and whether the cost of food and fuel will continue to carve deeper into their monthly income. The updates coming in 2026 are experienced not in policy documents, but in lived experience. Inflation continues to be one of the most powerful forces shaping the Social Security conversation. Even though the cost of living adjustment entering 2026 is relatively modest, it reflects the fact that prices have been slow to settle. Many households recall the sharp increases that occurred in earlier years, and even a slight shift, whether upward or downward, affects the way people think about their financial future. Some beneficiaries have already begun adjusting their spending habits, stocking up on essentials, comparing medication plans, and reducing non-necessities in anticipation of another uncertain year. Awareness of the Social Security changes helps guide these decisions, offering a roadmap to what the months ahead may require. Another layer of change comes from the growing emphasis on digital tools within the Social Security system. More beneficiaries than ever before are encouraged to maintain updated online accounts so they can review their payment history, track updates, receive official notices, and avoid misinformation that spreads easily across social platforms. This shift toward digital verification has created new habits for many older Americans, prompting questions about technology access, cybersecurity, and reliable online communication. Entering 2026, the reliance on these tools becomes increasingly important as the Social Security Administration continues modernizing its systems. For individuals who are not comfortable with computers or smartphones, these updates represent a new challenge. Another reason community centers, libraries, advocacy groups, and family members are stepping in to help bridge the gap. Within the broader national landscape, Social Security remains central to the conversation about economic resilience. As wages shift, as inflation stabilizes or accelerates, and as the cost of healthcare continues to climb, the importance of reliable monthly benefits becomes even more pronounced. Many economists have highlighted that the program remains one of the most powerful anti poverty tools in the nation's history, lifting millions of older adults out of hardship and providing steady income even in turbulent times. The changes arriving in 2026 reinforce this role, offering adjustments that help people maintain a sense of equilibrium. For those who depend on disability benefits, the updates carry a unique weight. Medical costs, accessibility expenses, transportation challenges, and specialized equipment often stretch budgets far more tightly than the average household realizes. Any change, whether a modest cost of living adjustment or a reshaped payment calendar, can have a ripple effect on their daily planning. Many disability beneficiaries approach each year with careful budgeting, tracking every expense with precision. Entering 2026, the knowledge that payments will continue on their familiar timeline, paired with the new inflation adjustment, brings a measure of predictability that many desperately need. Conversations around Social Security also intersect with broader cultural discussions about aging. Many individuals now work later into life than previous generations, not always by choice, but often out of necessity. The rising cost of living, combined with the changing nature of retirement savings, has reshaped the way people think about their later years. As a result, Social Security's role as a foundational source of income becomes even more significant, especially for those who lack substantial pensions or personal savings. The changes coming in 2026 are seen through this lens as well, as older Americans evaluate what the next year will bring and how they can best prepare. Even with the attention these changes command, the heart of Social Security remains simple. It is a promise that after years of work, contribution, caregiving, or service, there will be something stable to rely on. When Americans look ahead to the coming year, they are not simply scanning for payment dates or percentages. They are looking for reassurance that the system supporting them remains dependable. The updates arriving in 2026, an inflation adjustment, a familiar but carefully timed payment schedule, and a deepening national conversation about the program's future shape that reassurance in meaningful ways. For millions of beneficiaries, awareness becomes empowerment. Understanding how the cost of living adjustment affects their monthly budget allows them to plan more confidently. Recognizing the payment dates helps avoid confusion and prevents unexpected gaps in essential bills. Staying informed about the larger Social Security debate ensures that they are not caught off guard by potential future changes. As 2026 approaches, Americans are not merely waiting for updates. They are preparing for them with clarity, purpose, and a growing sense of collective awareness. The year ahead will bring challenges, opportunities, and continued adjustments, but the foundation remains steady. Social Security enters 2026 with renewed attention, modernization efforts underway, and a commitment to providing support in a changing world. For beneficiaries across the nation, the goal now is simple: understanding the changes, preparing thoughtfully, and stepping into the new year with confidence.